Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today I kind of want to talk about delivering. This is one thing you've always got to deliver for the fans. And this has sort of come up because of some of the stuff that's been happening with the WWE recently. Like they promised things, or seemingly promised things, and then they didn't deliver on those things. So it's like this is one of those things that you have to try to deliver on something. Once you have something going on or building or whatever, even if it's implied, even if you don't like explicitly say The Rock is going to be at WrestleMania, you know, well, he's been featured in the build, to WrestleMania. And like I said before, like in some ways, people expecting The Rock to have a match or whatever else it is, maybe that's a little bit, over the edge and a bit too much, because it is like, well, he's getting older now, and, like if he says, oh, I can't really go anymore, fair freaking enough, guy, you do you, and, like, especially if you're wanting to do movies and whatever else it is, and that sort of thing, or you've got a tight schedule and that sort of thing. So it's like, yeah, I understand, fair enough, if you can't always, be there and be, like be involved in everything. It's like, yeah, but, like from what I understand, from what kind of heard, he was free at WrestleMania. He was just hanging out and though it wasn't a, blatant, kind of, thing to say, oh, yes, he's going to be involved in WrestleMania, whatever. It's like, well, that's been implied. It's been implied throughout this whole story. Like, yes, of course, you could go back to it at some point or whatever it is. But, like there hasn't been enough, or there wasn't enough implication in The Rock and John Cena's relationship. What did John Cena really get out of The Rock, siding with The Rock? If this had happened at WrestleMania, I don't think it should have. I actually think that the heel turn, building up to WrestleMania actually works pretty well. Because, like, again, like, I don't think going into the show it would be as good or as interesting or anything like that. Like, certainly, yes, you could do it after WrestleMania or at WrestleMania and that sort of thing, and then go from there. But it's like, WrestleMania is the biggest show, and making the match between Cody and Cena that much bigger by having Cena as the heel is like, okay, this is taking it from, where it was going to be a match between two of, our company's greatest stars or whatever else it is. John Cena has been one of the greatest stars for the last 10, 15, 20 years or whatever it's been. And here's, Cody Rhodes, our top guy right now. That's going to be the big match. And we're going to find out who's better and who wants it more or whatever, and all of this sort of stuff. But taking it to that next level and saying, this is, now Cena on another level, and, all of this, and he has The Rock, and he's sold his soul to him, and that, and all this sort of stuff, and finally, we're going to figure out, what's going on. Like, again, that's fine if that's the way you want to go, but you've got to deliver. You've got to deliver on the implication of saying, well, The Rock's now involved, so now he has to be involved in the finish or in some parts of the story going along, so especially for WrestleMania. It's the biggest show of the year, you know. But yeah, no, this applies to anyone, any company, not even just like anything. It applies to everything, every match, every angle, everything that you're kind of showcasing and whatnot in your program. When you say these two are going to fight or these two are going to wrestle at this time or that time or whatever else it is, people expect them to wrestle. Now, yes, sometimes you can bait and switch, especially when you've got, a baby face and you say, oh, they've been taken out, they've been injured or something before the match or whatever else it is. Especially if it's like on TV or whatever else it is. Because, like, you could still say this is part of the story and the build to the next pay-per-view or to the next big thing that we're trying to, sell people on. And then these two are going to finally fight. And then we're going to see something and go from there, So that's what you've always got to be doing. Like, it's okay to have some of those things along the way as long as, like, at the end of the feud or whatever it is, you pay that off and say, yes, you invested all your energy and time and money and whatever else into this story, and here's the ending, or like, almost the culmination of this story here. Like, this is the culmination of the John Cena heel turn and return and whatever else. He wins the 17th title, and he's going to go on to do what he's going to do for the next whatever number of months, whatever it is. And then he's going to lose the title to whomever or whatever and whenever. So that's what you've got planned. He might have a rematch with Cody, and that might have something more in it to do with this kind of thing or whatever else it is. But it doesn't really matter because, like, the peak of the story has already come. You've already seen the outcome kind of thing. You've already seen the game-changing moment, And so you have been delivered upon that sort of part of the promise of saying, this is what you like, roughly what you're going to see. You're going to see these two guys go head to head, and you're not just saying, like, we're leaving you on a bad note to say, oh, Cena won and Cody lost. We're trying to give you, this thing of saying, okay, but what's next? Who's going to take it from Cena? How is that going to happen? How are they going to overcome the odds? Or, like the 17-time champion, like something that supposedly has never happened before or whatever else it is, and all this sort of stuff. Sort of like he's the final boss type thing, obviously he's been the final boss for a while. Kind of doing this angle pretty cool. I think it kind of works, and it will be really cool to see whoever kind of comes along and beats him for that belt, and we'll be interested to see it. But like, again, you look at anything that TNA has done when they brought in the Hardys as a tag team. The implication there is, like, not just, oh, we've brought these guys in and they exist and they're going to have some matches, much like they were in AEW, and I know shit happened there and whatever else, but when you've got the Hardys, and even if you say, oh, well, we don't want them as our champions or whatever else it is, that's fine. But you say you're not going to feature them, you're not going to give them something to work with, and you're just going to put them in nothing matches despite how popular they are, and they're not going to win. At least if they are going to lose, like, make it a big deal. Like, these guys beat the legendary Hardys tag team, and now they're getting a big time title shot, things like that. Elevate some other teams off of them, not just saying, oh, they beat the Hardys, and next week, here they come again, they're still here, and it didn't really mean anything, So when you've got these guys, the implication is they are major stars, you're going to do something major with them. So that's what they did. They took them and they said, okay, let's put you in a major program and then let's give you the titles. And then they also said, we're not going to just stop there. We're not just going to say, here's the titles, see you later, bye. You can just wander around and you have the titles, but we're not, it's not like their tag division is insanely strong. But again, they did what they could do, and some people got injured and whatever else and all that stuff. But again, they said, okay, well, we've got to find things or people and whatnot for you to go up against. We've got to find some things along the way so that you have something to do every single week, every single month, so that, what's next? We're going to put you with the Nemeth, we're going to give you that team to go up against, because we need more teams and we need more heel teams, and this makes some amount of sense. But you're also giving, and in a way I've said that they should have built the Nemeth more, but you're giving them a big time match against the Hardys, and it's that's a big thing, and it's well worth the time to see and say, okay, well, what are they going to do here? Even if it's this is throwaway or whatever else it is. In some ways, it's oh yes, there's not much there, and they haven't been built up that much. But it's the feud that they do have can sort of surpass that, and it is well, the promise will be that they will wrestle. They've already wrestled there, and they will wrestle again, but as a proper team versus team. And we'll see where that goes. Again, we're going to keep them in relevant positions, as, and that's one of the three main events. Again, the Hardys are that popular, and, whatever else, it is a significant enough match in some ways to say, just to see the Hardys, So I think that is the weakest of the three main events. But again, putting that up there, or trying to put that up there and say, hey, this is an important match or whatever else it is, and try to give it that build is at least something. So, but yeah, no. But again, when you see the Hardys come back and win the titles, that is you're giving the fans something that they want to see, and then you're saying, okay, or whatever, we're going to get onto other ones. But again, then you're going to see them face whoever and whomever we've got, and, whatnot along the way, up to the point where, whoever takes the belts off of them. And that team or whatever else will be, legitimized and be, pushed along and be the top team for the next 6 months or 8 months or whatever it is. Or even longer, they'll, still carry that saying, oh, we beat the Hardys one time for the titles, blah, 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 and then you bring them back, somebody beats them and then they come back and say, oh, yes, but we beat the Hardys and we beat one of the most legendary teams of all time, that sort of thing, And yeah, you build people like that. The promise of you're going to see some of these guys, and even if you say, oh, I like the Hardys way more than this other team, it's yeah, but, don't you want to see these young guys eventually, take the reins when the Hardys disappear, or when they leave or when they retire or whatever else it is? You've got to have investment in other people, not just the Hardys. Like, there are other people that are worth investing your time and energy in, and that's not just from the babyface perspective, that's from the heel's perspective, whatever else as well. So, same thing, like Nick Nemeth, the implication was there that this is a big deal, this is a big signing. The first thing that he gets, like, in the company is a title match. Now, he doesn't win the title match, but the implication is, again, there to say, we're elevating this person within, like, for 6 months. Like, he'd just gotten there, So, saying that he's in the title match, already he's in the main event picture. He might not have won, but we're going to keep him in that main event or that high-level picture, and we're going to keep him going to that point. And so, there's that level of saying, okay, we can't always do that, and you kind of want to do stuff in, with your brother as a tag team. Okay, we'll do some stuff there as well, but the idea was to give him enough stuff for 6 months, whatever it was, to do, and then say, okay, we've given you some stuff to do for 6 months. Now we're going to put the title on you and see where that goes, and that'll last 6 months, whatever it is. And then we've had a year of you doing some, like, fairly big stuff, having your debut, having your, like, first title match, winning the title, having, a lot of great matches against a lot of great wrestlers. Recently had that great match against Leon Slater, again, trying to elevate new young talent up to that level, or at least thinking about them on that level of saying, yes, they didn't win against this person, but only just and only because by hook or by crook or whatever else it is. And yes, like, in history, some people say, oh, well, that doesn't really matter or whatever else it is. But again, like, it does, like, until, like, the point at which, that person actually does, do something, big. Because, like, they're still trying to break, somebody out and say, okay, like, yes, these things will become, like, a footnote in somebody's history, and somebody might bring it up, maybe, but, it's not a real big thing. It's not going to, be talked about all that much until this storyline is kind of over. Once the storyline or whatever is currently over, it's like, yeah, people aren't really going to remember that Slater lost by hook or by crook to somebody, all that time ago. But, it does give him that shine in the fans' eyes of seeing him on that level of, the guy that was just world champion, and he almost beat him, and it's like, again, they've tried to do that a lot with Leon. And that's why, again, I do believe that eventually, at some point, he is winning that X Division title. So that is another, like, maybe future down the road thing that, it's a sort of not a promise or whatever, in per se, but it is that implication, again, of saying people expect to see you deliver on this thing that is, like, there, that you have been, teasing at, hinting at, building towards, whatever else it is, for however long it is. You've given this guy these main events, you've given this guy all these chances, and now here it is, he's finally going to win the X Division title. What's he going to do after that? How is he going to be not just a good X Division wrestler, not just the youngest in charge? What's he going to do after that? Like, where'd you go from there? What's next? So, yeah, it will be interesting to see. And, you're still, like, even in, like, losing the belt eventually, because he will have to, everyone has to lose eventually, it's like, well, even in loss, we're trying to give him something else, once he loses that belt, here's another feud, here's another angle, here's another thing, here's something else, so that, or here's putting you in a tag team. Let's see what we can do with you there. Let's make you a triple crown winner. Let's give you the international championship or something. Like, you could do all these different things with him, and a lot of other wrestlers as well. Like, same with Casey Navarro, another future promising star. It's like, you've got to deliver on these guys and say, right, let's find a time and a place to put a big belt on them and give them a good reign and give them some good feuds and give them, something to work with, and then, elevate them, because that's the important thing. Like, elevation. You cannot sit back and say, oh, well, we have Joe Hendry or whatever else it is, and we have Mike Santana, so he's probably like one of the next big guys. We've got to have like a division where people go, oh crap, like, there's so many guys here, like, like Ace Austin's coming up, this person's coming up, that person's coming up, like, EY's still hanging on, like, like, you've got to think that everyone has a chance somewhere and can do something, and that be a meaningful thing, and the fans will get that payoff eventually of seeing them, really culminate themselves at the top level. And I said this before, like, TNA has delivered on a lot of things. They haven't delivered on everything, but again, they have delivered on a lot of things. There are sometimes, I think the Tessa Blanchard thing is probably the one thing that a lot of people don't want them to, quote, deliver on, because that's, still a sour taste in the people's mouths and whatnot. So you've featured this person and you've given them a good run, and I think that is enough of a promise or enough of a showing in some ways of saying, we can take anyone, and, give them a good run. And they've done that a lot. They have done that a lot with a lot of people. Just about everyone that they've got, they have given a good run to. Now, yes, there have been a few, but haven't. But again, Nick Nemeth, the Hardys, Leon Slater, he's had a good run thus far. Casey Navarro, he's starting to catch fire, So everyone, Tessa Blanchard, she's having a good run right now. Even so, like, Marsha's having a good run now because of this situation. The NXT people that they're getting right now, Jakara Jackson, Last Legend, Gigi Dolan, and Tatum Paxley, they're doing something with them. They're giving them a major match at a major show, and a major build of a few weeks, or a month, or whatever. So again, you're giving these people time to showcase themselves and to, deliver for the fans, because that's what, and that's why TNA is in such a good position for the most part. They've been delivering and consistently delivering. And if they keep that up and say, okay, maybe we missed out on Hammerstone, or maybe we missed out on this person or that person, but if we keep delivering, we have to keep delivering. And even something like Tasha Steelz, well, we didn't know what else we could do with her, whatever it was, and that was that. Like, we didn't really deliver too well on that, but, like, let's give her something else to do, because she's amazing and she deserves it, and she's put in a lot of work, so, and, she's still putting in some great work, but again, like, let's give her something else to do, and then we'll try to figure something else out for her, down the road or down the track. And I actually think, like, in a few months, like, maybe that, if you, like, as I said, if it isn't on Tessa, that you should start to think, okay, how can we, put it on Ash, or how can we put it on Tasha, or how can we put it on somebody else, or whatever else. So that's, and I'm sure that's not gonna last, unfortunately. But again, it's like, in some ways, because again, like just the WWE NXT relationship is like, it sort of demands that you have a babyface as the champion because you're getting all these invaders in some ways. I guess like the elegance thing is the one outlier there, but like still, it's sort of tough to bring people in as babyfaces when they're challenging for a title. It's easier to bring them in as heels. So, but yeah, like at every aspect, you need to deliver. You need to have solid everything, solid, mid card, solid lower card, solid tag team, solid women's division. Even if it's not like the greatest, like again, and that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, but it's delivering. That's where you need to be. Like every week and every month, there's somebody has a story. Everyone kind of has a story, but sometimes those stories are getting, more elevated to the next level, to a title match or to a, major feud blow off or whatever else it is. And then you're going from there. So, I think if you don't deliver, that's when you start like really losing people. And, I think like, again, you can make mistakes, and that's probably why, like the bigger companies can make more mistakes, like because, hey, you're already making a lot of money, so it's like, it takes a lot of mistakes to kind of dislodge the ship kind of thing, or dislodge the train from the tracks type thing. But you should be going, that didn't really pan out the way we wanted it to, and we should always be trying to deliver. The end, the fans and their enjoyment at the end of the day, even if it's it comes later and that sort of thing, is like paramount. We've got to think about why we're, giving them this, or why we're giving them that, or whatever else it is, or why we're leaving them here, or, whatever it is. When's, Money in the Bank, or whatever else it is. When's the next thing? Who's going to win Money in the Bank? Who's going to take, be Cena's first challenger? It looks like Orton. Who's going to be Joe Hendry's next opponent? Like, same sort of thing. You've got to be thinking, like, what's next? And is that Randy Orton thing with Joe Hendry going to pay off? Maybe not, And is there going to be somebody, apparently there is, but we're going to talk more about it if it happens, is there going to be somebody from the main roster WWE come over to TNA? And where's that going to go? So again, if that comes up, it's like, well, how's that going to, be concluded, and how and when and why and all that sort of stuff. How are you going to deliver for the fans? But yeah, guys, you guys always obviously get it. But again, it's just one of those things that have kind of got to be said sometimes. And I think we've sort of said this sort of similar thing before, but it's always true. You've always got to be looking at things and saying, is this delivering? How many things delivered out of like however many things we had? How many things do we have? 15 or whatever it is? I don't know. That's probably too many, but like 5, 6, 7 things. Here it is, whatever number of things. What's delivering? What will still be delivered? Where's this at? Where's the next thing for that? Like all of these are important. So, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys will join me again in another one. I promise to deliver there too.